One. All right, Tommy, let's shoot this fucker. Ed Wood coming up next. Haven't Seen It with Tim Sestito and Tommy Tevene. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time, and today that is Tommy
Yeah,
going into Ed Wood. He's having a bit of a Tim Burton marathon right now.
I've watched
Uh,
like six of his movies, I think, in the past week. So
This is
definitely
my
chasing.
second in the past couple of days. We'll obviously dive into that a little bit more in just a minute. First, I wanted to shout out the passing and pay our respects to the legend James Earl Jones, who passed away earlier today, right before we recorded. What do you even say about a mammoth of a man like that? That
Probably
can't
like
be
a
said.
top five most iconic voice of all time. Easily.
I think it's top one iconic voice of all
Yeah,
time. He's the greatest movie villain we've ever seen.
yeah. And then he
He
played Mufasa.
and he played well. Mufasa wasn't a villain.
Yeah, but he wasn't a villain. But
He
yeah,
was in
he was also iconic.
Field of Dreams, Conan the Barbarian.
Mhm.
He made his film debut in Doctor Strangelove.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, so we've covered two of his films now. We covered Field of Dreams like 2 or 3 years ago.
That was the first season of the pod. Yeah,
Yeah, this first season, and like that was just such a performance. When I rewatched that movie since, and he just commands that movie in a way. I think he really is like a beating heart of it, and it's just really sad he's gone. I mean, he's 93. He lived a
he
good
lived a
life.
great. He lived the top life you could possibly ask for.
Yeah.
We'd like to hope that some of the corporations would respect his passing and maybe retire his voice.
Well,
Something tells me that won't happen.
well. Actually, this was a thing that happened like 3 or 4 years ago. That James Earl Jones struck a deal with Disney to use AI for future uses of Doctor or Darth Vader's voice, and he'll be getting paid for it. And now his estate will get paid for it. So in that case, I'm like, fuck it, earn your money for your family. Just you have a lifeline right there for your family for generations now.
That's true. You can make sure your kids don't have to work off of the way Disney is going to milk that cash cow.
Yeah.
Although Star Wars is not in a healthy place. But I digress. I digress from there. The big reason we are covering Ed Wood this week, which is a movie I love, is Beetlejuice popping
Yeah.
out into theaters. It feels like the first time in a very long time that a Tim Burton movie recently released has had any excitement. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because Ed Wood is kind of this weird landmark of probably his last great movie from his early run, where he started to get more into the junk.
Mhm. I mean, there's definitely a little turning point right there. I think his last like great movie was Big Fish, which I saw for the first time this weekend.
Oh yes,
Talk about
I
that a
like
little
Big
bit.
Fish. I like Big
Yeah,
Fish.
that's a great movie. But other than that, I mean, in the past like 10 years, 15 years of Tim Burton, we've had like the Alice in Wonderland sequel remake thing. No one, I don't, never saw it. It was a kind of trash. He made Dark Shadows, where people hated, Big Eyes, which was apparently okay. Um, Miss Peggy's Home for Peculiar Children, an X-Men ripoff. And then he made Dumb Ups, and no one gives a shit about it. I mean, Wednesday came out. That was kind of resurgence for him. And now Beetlejuice, it made like 140 million worldwide at the box office, 110 million weekend. This is going to be a huge hit for Tim Burton. I would not be shocked if this could cause a renaissance for him.
I mean, I'd like to see it. I think there were a couple of reasons for that.
Yeah.
Because we both saw Beetlejuice, and let's give some general impressions before we deeper into some spoiler talk, maybe.
First thoughts. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I think that the plot of this is definitely a little bit of a mess. There's like one too many subplots, but
There's a
I think
plot.
this, yeah, exactly. But I think the movie's just so fun that you're able to just like get past that and be like, all right, whatever. It's good to see these characters back. And
It's interesting because the story of this really feels like it should be a cynical it feels like it was written as a cynical cash grab and shot with that in mind. And I don't know, I still had a lot of fun with the movie. I don't know how else to really say it. uh it really felt like Tim Burton had that spark again, and I think there was a big reason for that, and the biggest reason being that this was mostly practical effects shot.
yeah.
Whereas I feel like a lot of what Tim Burton's made in the past 15 years has been all digital CGI and kind of loses his vision, or gets absorbed into his vision rather. And it kind of takes over like the creative storytelling that he's like really famous for. And I don't know, like I had fun in it. I think we'll just dive into some quick spoilers on it.
Oh,
Uh,
spoiler alert.
First of all, I loved how they treated Jeffrey Jones' character. I thought that's fucking hilarious.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know, Jeffrey Jones plays the father in the original Beetlejuice, and
Ferris
let
Bueller's principal. Yeah,
first he's in Ed Wood, funny
he's
enough.
in Edward. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
But he let's just put it this way: he has to introduce himself to his neighbors whenever he moves, so he was not welcome onto the production, and they killed off his character,
Yeah.
kind of. He dies, but they had him die in a shark attack in this weird like CG
Stop motion kind of
stop
thing.
motion thing from that looked like it was out of 1998. I was like, what am I watching?
Oh,
Like
I
it
loved it.
was I thought it was kooky
Yeah.
as heck. And then they literally they show his corpse when he's in the afterlife, and it's the top is bitten off, and it's
Yeah.
just like him doing like these weird little gory flashes. Um,
You
they
see
got
blood spurt out of his body a lot.
Yeah, and the movie's just filled with a lot of fun, really fun moments like that. The Bobs who were working for Beetlejuice seem to be the star of the show. Um, Danny DeVito with a little cameo.
Yeah.
Uh,
One of Tim Burton's favorites.
one of his favorites, and then he's in love with Monica Bellucci, and she's like an antagonist in this movie, even though it was like for her, she had one of the coolest villain reveals I've seen in like these like rebooted older movies that I've seen. And it just her storyline came, and it was like a very interesting concept, and it just came up so flat.
Yeah, it was like an awesome intro. Great like introduction with like that. I think it was Diana Ross song, whatever that was used to like introduce her, and they just did nothing with her, and they just like would keep on being like, "Oh yeah, she's in this movie. Let's go back to her real quick." It was like she had her own mini slasher film, but they didn't really expand upon it.
Yeah, and I
And
think I think the movie would have benefited more from leaning more into that versus the mother-daughter drama of Winona Ryder and Jenna Ortega. And it was just like Jenna Ortega's like, I'm mad that you say you can talk to ghosts, but dad died and you can't talk to him.
Mhm.
What the heck, mom?
Yeah.
And then she's like, I just hate you now. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess how that would be upsetting, but it also doesn't work that way. And there's kind of a lot of there's a whole movie of evidence in that world that it did
Mhm.
happen. And
Yeah,
like her
it's that.
grandmother's like, yeah, it happened. Her grandfather's like, yeah, this crazy shit all happened.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of those funny things with like the legacy sequel aspect, how like Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis weren't back. And Gina Davis did an interview recently. She was like, "Yeah, our characters were ghosts. Ghosts don't age, and we have aged a lot." And I think it's best for the movie that they're just explain that by being like, "Oh, they found a loophole. Don't worry about it."
No, I
Uh,
and I actually appreciate that too, instead of like trying to de-age them as ghosts
oh
and have
yeah,
them back to make like a like they also didn't fit anywhere into this story.
it would have been
Uh
too crowded. But I mean, I think Justin Theroux was a good like little like foil as like the husband Winona Ryder. I thought he was hilarious, especially when he's giving
he
like the truth serum in the end.
just like when he like you could just smell that he's a scam artist right away, just like
Yeah,
one of these producers trying to latch himself on, and then it turns out he went to like a grief counseling and basically would go there to attach himself to women, which
yeah,
is like, oh, all-time scumbag right there.
yeah,
And I mean Willem Dafoe having the time of his life.
Oh yeah, amazing. It's just like you can feel Tim Burton having fun again. I think we haven't seen that in a while. And that was the
Yeah,
best part of this movie.
this was more of a director's movie, I feel like, versus anything else. Like this
Mm,
movie works. I would say it's a 2.5 or a 3 probably, but it's a lot of
mm.
fun. Like I
Yeah.
think the plot kind of falls apart.
Mm,
But you're gonna have a fun time watching it. It's also like 100 minutes long, which oh,
great. Yeah.
chef's kiss.
No, no,
Nothing
no
worse.
complaints there.
Nothing worse than these legacy sequels that feel the need to be 2 hours and 40 minutes, and you're just like, oh, please,
And the fact
please
that
no.
they didn't treat the original as like a sacred holy text in a way. So for me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. I mean, I still had a lot of fun with it. I think Michael Keaton also he just slipped right back into those shoes immediately.
I thought he was underused.
Mm,
I guess that kind of works. I guess that's kind of how he was even in the original Beetlejuice. It's almost like if you get too much of him.
yeah,
But I feel like the relationship between Monica Bellucci and Beetlejuice, they were married and in real life, and now she's coming back to haunt him or whatever. Just had a lot more interesting thing going on versus like the Deets, and then you had like Willem Dafoe who was having the time of his life as well as
mm,
like this this cop who is used to be an actor on like a crappy action series and
yeah.
died in a implied that he died in a motorcycle accident.
Oh no, it was a grenade. He was like, "How's I supposed to know it's a live grenade?"
Oh, that
Yeah,
that feels like a little bit of a shot at Alec Baldwin, no?
maybe it could have been right there, just a little bit. I mean, also I would mention Catherine O'Hara. She was just like spinning all cylinders right there. She was hilarious in that movie.
She was having a lot of fun. Yeah, and that was the thing too. You could just tell the energy from the cast. Everybody was having fun with this. It's not taken too seriously.
Mm,
Um, I enjoyed it. I don't know, and I'm usually the cynical one of the two of us towards these
yeah,
like legacy cash grabs. I went and saw it kind of with no expectations. I ended up having a good time at the movies. I would recommend it, honestly.
yeah. Definitely recommend it here too. So, and check out our old episode of Beetlejuice, which I think we did a year ago, 2 years ago. It's all blends in.
I think we did it 2 years ago. I think we did it original Halloween.
Yeah, we might. But yeah. So speaking of the Tim Burton feature, I did a double feature of Tim Burton this week of Big Fish and Edward Scissorhands at the Jacob Burns Film Center in Pleasantville. It was great. Never saw Big Fish before. As someone who has unfortunately lost his dad, that movie hit a raw nerve, and I was like sobbing by the end. But just a great emotional movie. I thought that
Ewan
what's
McGregor,
his
he's
you
fantastic in that.
yeah, he was amazing in that, and just like all the performances throughout. I mean, I think it might be one of my favorite Tim Burton movies. And Edward Scissorhands, we already discussed in this episode like last year. Fun movie, still really fun in theaters too.
Yeah, Edward Scissorhands, another fun movie. I really Tim that you were right when you said Big Fish. That's like the last great Tim Burton movie because it's kind of
Mm,
this. If you look at Tim Burton's filmography between Ed Wood and Ed Wood and Big Fish, which is about a 9 year gap. Mars Attack, Sleepy Hollows, Planet of the Apes are the three movies he makes in between there. I know you're a fan of Mars Attacks. I feel
I
like
watched it over the weekend. Still rocks.
I feel like you just show that to people. You're just like, hey, have you ever seen do you have a real nostalgia for 90s CGI?
Yeah,
Mars Attack is the one
I showed it to my
for you.
girlfriend this weekend. I was like, "We're watching Mars Attacks," and she loved it. So,
I remember seeing Planet of the Apes in theaters with my dad, the Mark Wahlberg one, and we were
oh,
both
apparently
just
it's
like,
trash. Yeah,
I don't remember much about it. I just remember leaving the theater. Me and my dad were both like, this was just horrendous. And then Big Fish, but then he's got like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory,
yeah. Eh.
uh, Sweeney Todd, Alice in Wonderland, and Dumbo. Funny enough, a movie I did watch this past weekend for the first time, probably since I was 5,
Mm,
was Dumbo, the
the original.
1940 original.
Yeah,
Yeah, way more sad than I remember.
and also probably doesn't age well with all the crows and shit, right?
I didn't think the crows were that bad, but there's a song in like the first 5-10 minutes of the movie that it did not age well. I will tell you that much. It's just like black men setting up the tent and singing about slavery and stuff. And I was like, oh, ooh boy.
Yeah, yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, oh boy, I can't believe they actually kept this one up on Disney Plus with that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, apparently the Dumbo movie was like a movie that broke Tim Burton, the remake, where he said like that he realized that he was just like Dumbo being like a trained animal in a circus of Disney, and he's just like, I can't stand this shit. This is his first movie in 5 years because he just like was burnt out on the movie making.
yeah, and now he comes back to a more simplified, streamlined
And his
platform, kind
next
of what he did before, like incorporated his style, but didn't let it dominate the picture. I think the one thing it lacks from like the great Tim Burton movies is like the heart. I think like that's a staple of all like the great Tim Burton movies. They all have this heart to them that I think Beetlejuice does not have.
I'll agree on that. But his next movie apparently is going to be a remake of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, which sounds right up his alley, and I'm excited for that. And it's apparently going to be written by the person who wrote Gone Girl, so we'll see how that ends up.
All right, I guess we'll be covering Sleepy Hollow or Mars Attacks at some point then.
I've been pushing for Mars Attacks for a while. We'll get that eventually.
We'll get there when the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman comes out. But anyway, we're on to my personal favorite Tim Burton movie, Ed Wood.
From Touchstone Pictures, on October 1st, midnight, Tim Burton brings you the movie event of the year.
Transvestites. I need transvestites.
What kind of a movie is this?
Johnny Depp is director Ed Wood.
You flying saucer?
See the true story of an unforgettable filmmaker
I like to dress in women's clothing.
at a special midnight sneak preview.
Oh, I'm all man. I even fought in WW2. Of course, I was wearing women's undergarments under my uniform.
Ed Wood, rated R. Midnight sneak preview this Saturday in select cities.
Yeah, it's that's quite the trailer. So Ed Wood is a biographical, and I say biographical in quotations because it is a biographical film, but it couldn't it seems to very much stray from the truth,
Yeah.
according to real counts and just from the tone of the film itself. It
To
was-
start, Bela Lugosi apparently did not curse in real life. That's what his son was. Like, my dad
yeah,
was a gentleman.
and he has the most famous line in the movie. All right, let's shoot this fucker.
Yeah.
And it's about Ed Wood, who is quote unquote the worst director of all time, and his relationship with actor Bela Lugosi. Now, if you're not aware of who Bela Lugosi is, Bela Lugosi played Dracula. He was the original Dracula in the 1930s monster movies.
Which we'll be covering next month.
Yeah, we'll be covering. Are we doing that one or Frank? Whatever. And we're gonna be covering one of them.
Yeah.
And the movie kind of revolves around their relationship with additional supporting cast members coming in throughout the picture. I really think like this one has the most heart of all the Tim Burton movies I've seen, and I think it really pops through. I know Tim Burton is quoted as saying, during the production of this, why does it kind of have this like elevated tone? Because for somebody who had no success in his life, Ed Wood, and to understand Ed Wood, he made 3 B movies and then went on to start making bad porno movies while he was drinking himself to death, and he died penniless in the 70s. Like that doesn't come through in the movie at all.
Yeah, they don't touch upon that. That's just the tail card thing at the end. Like,
But-
he died.
Yeah, but Tim Burton really comes up and says these are a group of people who have been beaten down their whole life for the work that they did, and I kind of wanted to elevate them and make them, not treat them that way. And I think like that's where this kind of like it's almost a fantastical tone that kind of comes into it, right? It's not a real interpretation of real life. But I think it's real life sneaks in with Bela Lugosi's drug addiction.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some parts that are accurate and everything, but there's definitely a way this movie could have been made where it would have been like a straight up just like, oh, look at this like stupid fucks and like look at how incompetent they are and everything like that. I'm thinking movies like The Disaster Artist, how that didn't really humanize what's his name?
Tommy Wiseau. And interestingly enough, this was written by the same screenplay writers as the Disaster Artist. And I think these are the only 2 movies that can kind of come into play here that are even remotely similar? I'm guessing more people just know about the disaster artist.
Also, I was thinking of the movie which I watched recently, and with Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin called the Bowfinger, which is a very similar movie of like making a bad B movie and everything like that, and how they bring up like the whole Motley Crue, which has a fictional take on everything in that. These movies, just like especially Ed Wood, just brings a great ensemble cast right here of like all these Motley Crue people, the people that definitely existed, like Vampira, who was like the Elvira of her time. They even mentioned at the end of the movie that she tried to sue Elvira for stealing her shtick. And all these guys like Chris Dow, who was like a Tonight Show guest and everything like that. And it's just really fun seeing them just all come together and like stealing props and everything like that. And it's just charming. It's just a really charming movie throughout.
It really is. I think it's a funny movie too. And I think
Oh yeah,
for people like us, you and I, who are true lovers of films, evident by our podcast where we talk about movies once a week.
yeah,
I think this is a movie for movie lovers. It kind of goes into the creation of movies, but on the lowest end of the spectrum.
yeah. It's like this is like how the Z grade people did it. Now we were talking about this before we recorded. You have not seen an Ed Wood movie at all, right?
I have not seen an Ed Wood movie at all.
That's gonna be one we'll have to cover like one day, like where we just have an episode with like Dowling or Upstairs Steve. We get drunk and like Plan 9 from Outer Space. Let's just shit on it. Get drunk, see what happens.
Well, maybe if we have people who would be interested, we just do like a live Zoom watch
Yeah.
of it with people. I feel like Plan 9 from Outer Space probably doesn't have enough meat on the bones to cover a full episode.
No. I've seen Plan 9 from Outer Space. I saw Brad the Monster like about like 12 years ago or something. And both of them are just the epitome of so bad it's good, where it's just like Bela Lugosi and Brad the Monster is doing like a rip off of his Dracula thing, of his hand movement thing, which they mentioned in Ed Wood in the movie.
They're the kind of movies that you want to watch with friends and shit on. I feel like
You can't watch it by yourself. That'd be awful.
yeah, you and I watching Plan 9 from Outer Space by ourselves would not be good. And it's very interesting because there was some book that was published in the 70s, like right after Ed Wood died, that basically claimed it was the worst movie of all time. I always think that phrase is a hyperbole. It's like they're usually the most entertaining bad movies ever made. They're not like the worst movies ever made. Like it's like the ratty production quality and the terrible performances. There's just always something to laugh at and fun at. Like my definition of a really bad movie is a movie that like I just want to turn off, that I find no enjoyment watching whatsoever. And that's ultimately just boring. Like the worst kind of movies are like really low production movies with no story, no life to it whatsoever. And
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like for me, like I'm a huge fan of the Friday the 13th movies, where I will say those movies are trash, but they're fun trash, where you watch them and like, this is a fun movie to get drunk to and just laugh at all the bad things. But like you said, like the worst movies are the ones that are just boring, nothing happens, and you're just like, oh God, this is putting me to sleep right now.
the worst movies ever made live deep in the depths of an IMDb page. Like you have to
Yeah.
just dive so deep into them, and you're like, this even exists. I know Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst will usually covers them, and I've seen some of the Red Letter Media coverage of bad movies, and they're just like, I remember one episode they were like, yeah, we covered this movie, and we literally had to go pick another one because there was just absolutely nothing to talk about. It was that boring. It was that dull. And like that's ultimately what a really bad movie is. But diving into Ed Wood, as you were saying, Tommy, it has this weird underdog mentality to it. Ed Wood famously was a cross-dresser. He refers to himself as a transvestite on the phone. Probably language that wouldn't be in a movie today, but I think it's ultimately a very positive depiction of that kind of lifestyle at the time.
Yeah, it doesn't like other him or make him like be a creep or anything like that.
It doesn't punch down. It doesn't. The movie does not punch down whatsoever on people in a time where I feel like punching down on that group of people was very commonplace. And
Oh
kind
yeah.
of treats it with respect and just being like, hey, I'm a normal person too, but I just enjoy wearing women's brasiers and panties when I'm paratrooping out of a plane in World War II.
Well, it is funny how he explains it to people, especially with like the Patricia Arquette character, where he's like, "Yeah, I wear women's clothing. I'm not gay. I like women. I like having sex with women. I just like their clothes too."
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
He's I like when he explains it to probably one of the best heat check performances in the movie, who is played George Weiss, the producer for the first movie, Glen or Glenda, that he makes, Mike Starr, who's
Yeah.
just like this slimeball Hollywood producer there.
Yeah. Like Z grade. I just love that his like all those things like this sounds like shit. And I love how Bela Lugosi throughout this movie, everyone's like, he's dead already, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I was thinking about this when watching this, that Bela Lugosi, if he was like around in like the 80s or 90s, he just missed the boom of like the horror movie convention stuff where like,
Yeah. Oh, he
yeah,
would have
if like,
made so much money giving away his
yeah,
signatures.
yeah, like I'm about to work a horror fest in like 2 weeks, and like we have like people on the celebrity list that are like fucking like Z grade, like they were in like fucking like what the Last Boy Scout or whatever, or Lost Boys, and it's just
Well,
like people are gonna give him so much money. Bela Lugosi, it's crazy to think. You think that like, oh, he was Dracula, he was definitely like rich throughout his whole life. His family set for generations, like James Earl Jones, and no, it's like no, back then
you didn't
he
make
was he was desolate. He didn't have an opportunity to go to a horror convention and take photo ops of people and make like tons of money, like thousands of dollars at these conventions.
doesn't the guy who played Jason as a kid in the first Friday the 13th just go to every single horror convention?
Oh yeah, yeah. He goes to every single one.
He's a horror convention legend.
But it's like we have a point in our culture now of the horror movie fans where like you have like a guy who's like, I played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, and then there would be like hundreds of people lined up to get his signature. That's how like rabid some horror fans can be.
I don't get signatures. I don't really know what I'm gonna do with them.
Well, I mean, I'll do it for like bands where like I'll get like a record signed by them or something.
No,
So
I get it, but like I'm just, for me, I go, that's cool. What am I gonna I'm gonna spend $150 to get this? Okay.
yeah.
But anyway, I digress from that point back to Ed Wood. It kicks off with him producing this low budget play with his girlfriend at the time,
Hmm.
Dolores Fuller, who's played by Sarah Jessica Parker,
Hmm.
who, Sarah Jessica Parker has a reputation of having a horse face. And in Ed Wood, while reading a review, she literally looks into the camera and goes, do I really have a face like a horse? And now you know where it comes from. Now you know where she gets the reputation. She told you from the horse of the mouth herself
Hmm. Yeah,
that she has a
exactly.
face like a horse.
Exactly. Just right there. I thought that she was just great in this movie as like the initial foil, where like she almost immediately is just like, this is bullshit. What are we doing here?
We're wasting time. Yeah, so Dolores Fuller, she's actually was a fairly successful actress and songwriter. She worked with Elvis on a couple songs in the
Mhm.
60s. So like she was famous. She came out and said like, I wasn't this negative Nancy. I was just kind of surprised when I found out Ed was stretching out my sweaters.
Yeah, she was still alive when this movie came out, and she said that she was upset because Sarah Jessica Parker like would have had a better performance if she'd gotten in touch with me. And she said like, why didn't they contact her and everything like that? She was like kind of disappointed in that aspect. And she was like, I was actually supportive of Ed for the most part. I left him because he was an alcoholic, which they did not touch upon this at all in this movie.
Yeah, and it is that weird blend of realism of like what happened,
Mm.
I think that sometimes is a criticism that a lot of people give to, you know, biographical films, which
Mm.
I don't necessarily agree with unless it's egregious, like in Napoleon when he's just like bombing the pyramids. It's like, well, that just straight up didn't happen. But changing these little like details and nuance, like Napoleon bombing the Great Pyramids of Gaza would be like one of these major world events that we would all be studying in school. It's not one of these like, it could have happened this way kind of deals. And Dolores Fuller looking back on her life 50 years later, like, no, I was really supportive of Eddie. Like,
No, I think the more egregious example is like when I think one thing that's good about this script and this movie is that no one was involved really from the Ed Wood things. I mean, they had cameos from Plan 9 actors, but you know, compared to like the Queen biopic Bohemian Rhapsody, where there's like
ugh.
scenes where like Freddie Mercury's like drunk as hell and his bandmates are all like, oh, we're gonna be home with our wives tonight and we're not gonna do your crazy partying, Freddie. It's like bullshit. You were doing that too, Brian May.
Freddie, you need to get clean, mate. It's like, what is this? What is this rewriting of history that we're doing
Yeah,
here?
like come
That's
on, you
another.
guys are being just as drunk as him. Like, let's be real.
I appreciate you bringing that up because I forgot that movie existed. I try to make sure I never think about that movie ever happening. What a
Yeah,
disgrace of a film there. But this movie has this weird thing of like when it keeps introducing its characters, it's always in this like fun, lively way. When Tor Johnson gets introduced, he's in this like wrestling match, and we get Jeffrey Jones, spinning his thing on television. We get Martin Landau literally lying down in a casket, which his son was like, "Yeah, Bella never slept in caskets." So we're like, "Yeah, we're aware. It was just thematically appropriate to have a man
yeah.
close to his death that
It's
ultimately goes
just
into his death."
shorthand. Yeah,
It's just a shorthand way for them to meet because it's less interesting than the real way, which is like he was introduced by his roommate at the time at a bar.
yeah.
Okay,
Apparently,
that's not fun.
the scriptwriter said that they didn't have like a lot of notes for like how like Ed Wood met a lot of these people, so they just kind of like, fuck it. He meets Tor Jones at a wrestling match. Let's just make this entertaining.
Yeah, and I again, I think it's another case of the movie working in its favor there. And I mentioned before, the movie really is the heart of the movie is about Ed Wood's relationship with Bela Lugosi. And Bela at this point in his life is, been out of work for several years, addicted to drugs. And Ed just sees, he said he saw Dracula was the first picture he ever saw on a big screen, and bringing being able to work and connect with him, when they're driving back from the casket shop. Oh, great big star like you must have hundreds of pictures lined up. I used to,
Yeah,
kid, but not anymore. Um,
it's like at this time, to put it in like perspective of like the actual history, um, he did Glenn Glenda in 1953, and but before that, he was in like his most prominent role was like 4 years before that. He was a Dracula again, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So at that point, he was parodying his most famous roles, and like that's the only thing he could do. And like he was in movies called like Mother Riley Meets the Vampire, and then one's like Bela Lugosi meets a Brooklyn gorilla. It's like what? These are just clearly just
he
the
was
trashiest of trash.
he was
Abbott
in
and
the
Costello's great, but
he was
other
in
than
the he was in the Red Box movies, or those fake Amazon movies that you see that are just there to like that have like big name actors in it that are in it for 2 minutes just to
yeah,
convince you to rent a movie. You're like, oh, it's a new Bruce Willis picture. He's the most famous example of this, I think.
yeah,
But yeah, it's very interesting watching Bella, who is, as the movie goes along, becomes much more cynical towards life, and he's pretty much just waiting to die at this point.
mhm,
And Ed has this, role in his life of keeping him going. I think there's an interesting scene when Bella checks into the rehab center and Ed chases away the paparazzi that came in, and Bella's like, "Why are you chasing them away?" He's like, "Because they're exploiting you."
mhm.
Now, in the sense of the movie, it definitely does not come across as Ed Wood exploiting Bela Lugosi, but he kind of is. He's
And
making these terrible movies and is like, I can only get them financed if I have one big star, and he's the only star I know.
yeah, in a way, like made it seem like it was a very close friendship and everything like that. And but it was very exploitative. It was pretty much just like doling him out in a way that we talk about, like Bruce Willis towards the end of his career, where that was essentially exploitative, where it's just like, okay, like say one or two lines, Bruce, and here's a cue card or whatever. It kind of similar way. What drew this project to Tim Burton was he felt like he related a lot to Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi with how he interacted with Vincent Price when he was coming up as a director. because he had Vincent Price in his last film role ever in Edward Scissorhands. That's definitely like a marquee idol of him, where he's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this." So there's a version of this movie where it would have been directed by Michael Lenahan, who's the director of Heathers, and he originally was the one who's going to do it, and then he ended up getting scheduling conflicts with the movie Airheads, the Adam Sandler Brendan Fraser movie. So I think we end up with a much better movie. I mean, Heathers is a fun movie, but Tim Burton's a much better director than he is.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like Heathers is his only notable film that even lives on through it. But this is a movie that I feel like, again, it's almost weirdly a hangout movie. I feel like, in a weird
Oh
sense,
yeah.
like it has a plot beat structure. It's about Ed making three different movies and him trying to get financing for it. Like that's the plot. Like if you had to explain the plot of the movie, that's what the plot of the movie is. But it's
Hmm.
all about the people that live with him and like the joy for life that they bring to him, essentially.
Hmm.
I feel like that's kind of what this movie's about. And I
Hmm.
think it's really great performances and really driven by great performances and just really great character highlights. Like one of my favorite ones is we haven't mentioned him yet, but Bill Murray is in this. This is in the run of Bill Murray uh making bad movies until his Wes Anderson revival. This is like the one that sticks out in his filmography.
It feels insane to me that Bill Murray has only worked with Tim Burton once. You feel like he would have been a bit part in like Mars Attacks as some random guy getting attacked by a Martian, or like he would have popped up in like I don't know, like Alice in Wonderland and some shit, or even in like he could have popped up in Beetlejuice Beetlejuice or something like that. It's shocking that like these two didn't end up working together a lot. Maybe Bill Murray was an asshole on set, maybe they clashed. But I thought Bill Murray was a great comedic aspect of this movie, where like especially the one part where like they're all getting baptized by the church,
Oh,
and Bill Murray's
that's
reaction in the water, he's like, oh, like flaying around and
ugh.
everything like that.
Do you reject Satan and all of his works?
Sure.
Sure. Just
Exactly.
he
Just
just
great deadpanning. And like, he's
and
talking about how like,
then he
oh,
goes
in
to
Mexico, this whole thing happened. The guy died. And
Ed goes to he goes to Ed. He says, "How did you convince all of your friends to get baptized like this?" And it's like for some science fiction film, and it's like, no, it's a paranormal thriller, and like that kind of just explains Ed Wood in this reality in this world. He gets these people in because he just has this like vibrancy of life, which really is portrayed through the performance by Johnny Depp in one of his
it's
best performances, I would say.
it's a really fun performance. It definitely gives off like the oh gee shucks kind of thing. He said that his characterization of Ed Wood was a mixture of Ronald Reagan, the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, and Casey Kasem. And you definitely see that come off a little bit. Where like I felt Casey Kasem the most. I feel like the most.
Yeah, but he just had this like buttoned up performance,
Mm,
like this weirdly like buttoned up, even though he's trying to hide this. He's like he's very much being a politician.
yeah,
You could see that in this movie. I love the scene where they're filming the night attack of the squid monster and Bride of the Atom in the second picture that he's making there, and Bella's like giving this emotional speech about being like, I could have been Frankenstein.
he's just like fucking depressed as hell.
He's depressed as hell that he's making this garbage. And it's like, Bella, I have 25 scenes that I need to shoot tonight. Are we ready to roll? Like it's just this like charming little snappy, and you could just see his character vibrant off, and you could just see why everybody in his world knows that they're making junk, but they still do it with him because he believes in what he's making, and that's kind of what comes through in this character and the power of belief. I
Mhm.
think is something that really resonates with audiences. I think what's interesting about Ed Wood itself was that it was not a hit when it came out. It was a big
It,
old
it's
floppy flop.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, this didn't have a huge budget. Oh,
Hello?
sorry, you froze for a second.
Okay, keep going.
You there?
Yeah, I'll cut
Yeah,
this out.
sorry. Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, this wasn't like a huge budget movie. I mean, this was an $18 million budget, which ironically, IMDb says that this budget was bigger budget than all of Ed Wood's movies combined.
That I believe.
But
That I believe. even if you
Yeah.
adjust for inflation.
Yeah, exactly. So this made like 13 million at the box office, which wasn't really like that great, but definitely became a cult classic. And it's interesting to see Tim Burton in this zone. I feel like up to this point, he was definitely getting to his blockbuster point where like a lot of his movies had big budgets. You know, he did Batman, Edward Scissorhands. I feel like even Beetlejuice had a big budget right there, and Batman Returns. So this is really like a stripped down movie for Tim Burton, which is interesting. Not seeing his like crazy visual special effects. He's definitely been known for it during the like later half of his career. This was more of just like a character piece, which was interesting to see him in that zone. I think that his direction was still fun. I mean, he still gave off that Tim Burton essence throughout this.
Oh, absolutely. And I think in that, like the Tim Burton zany horror vibes is kind of not really there, except for when they're at the carnival with Patricia Arquette, his second
Mhm.
girlfriend, who became his
And there's
wife.
there's like a snake that looks like the Beetlejuice snake.
Yeah, and they're in the House of Horrors, which reminds me of this is for the Rye people exclusively, but in Playland,
Oh
like
yeah,
right where the double shot is, that horror, that like haunted house ride that's right there.
that used to
It
scare the
just
fuck out of me.
that one just reminds me of that ride for what just things popping out of you in a little cart. That is
Yeah,
that ride to a T right
yeah,
there. You know,
yeah.
but I felt like the cinematography really stood out in this, and like the
Mm.
black and white was beautiful, and I think helped elevate this piece and kind of give it this like G. Willikers 1950s optimistic Americana approach to it.
Mm.
That, and like all
I
these themes are kind of present in a lot of Burton's movies.
Yeah, I think that the black and white was a great choice. This movie was originally going to be developed with Columbia, and Tim Burton said he wanted to do this as black and white, and the studio head was like, "No, fuck that. We're not making this movie. We're doing it in black and white." So Tim Burton's like, "All right, well, I'm not doing this movie then." So this movie went to turn around, and then it ended up being Walt Disney that ended up taking it. Like, okay, we'll do it this way, and it was such a great choice because if this was in color, it wouldn't have felt true to the tone of this movie. And like,
To the tone and the time of this movie, I think it gives it this this nostalgia, this wind up nostalgia for these junky movies that kind of found their cult following when they started getting VHS releases because it was cheap to pick up the rights for crappy B movies, and you market them right, you find an audience of people who are like, hey, do you like really bad movies?
yeah,
Here you
watch this one.
go, watch
I always
this one.
remember if like Seinfeld were like the episode where they really want to go see Plan 9 from Outer Space, but they're at the Chinese restaurant. They
That's
keep on getting
right.
delayed. Yeah.
That's right. So
Um,
the movie itself has a cult following to it.
yeah. But it took years and years until like after his death, way after Edward's actual death. So we haven't really touched upon like how great Martin Landau is as Bela Lugosi, and his daughter's in this movie too. She plays the girl who like finances the Bradley Adam, where he's like, "You have $300, right?" And like that's all the money I have. That's his daughter. She's also in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But anyways, Martin Landau, I thought great performance as Bela Lugosi. I mean, his Hungarian accent was very accurate. He apparently studied 35 different Bela Lugosi films and like a ton of tapes of the Hungarian like language just to get the accent down, and he was convincing.
Oh, he was very convincing. It's a fantastic performance, so much so that he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor this year over Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction
Yeah,
and Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump. Like you're talking two of 1994 is maybe the greatest year of big budget films ever released.
yeah, and somehow, yeah, I think that it's somewhat justified, even though of the three we just mentioned, that's probably the least iconic performance.
Oh yeah, easily, but
Yeah.
it deserves the win for sure. Um, I think that's a good time to talk about the performances in this movie.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
All right, Tommy, who's the star of the show here? I mean, one of the actors in this movie won the Academy Award for his performance in this
But
movie,
funny
Martin
enough, the
Landau.
only Tim Burton acting award for Oscar, naming his movies.
Really?
Yeah,
That kind of makes sense given the material that he usually makes. It
yeah,
doesn't always translate to like character study films.
I mean,
Uh,
Danny DeVito's Penguin should have won, but who am I to say?
yeah, sure. Uh,
Yeah.
and I sit here and I think, I go, Johnny Depp is an iconic leading man of the 90s and 2000s, and this is probably one of his best performances.
Mhm. It's a weird like zone that he's in where like he took him a while until like Pirates of the Caribbean, between Edward Scissorhands and Pirates of the Caribbean, where he didn't have a ton of hits. Like this wasn't a hit. The movies he made in between those two like weren't really that big hits, but he still was just like great. And this movie is just like him fully earnest, but just fun. He just like was a great little linchpin in this.
Oh yeah, he's a great little linchpin. It's this weirdly grounded performance that's like covering up the weirdo inside, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, that I think is really fantastic because I would say his greatest performance is most unquestionably Pirates of the Caribbean, Jack Sparrow. That's what he will be. That is what he will be remembered for, without a doubt. But
Yeah.
when you talk about performances, I think you just have to almost look at the entire cast. Like Sarah Jessica Parker, fantastic in this. She's like the only. It's interesting that she's kind of the only one with the realistic lens of being like, what you guys are doing is a waste of time.
Yeah.
All of you guys are doing this crap. You're just making crap that no one will remember. Ba ba ba. But I think
It's like
it's a really good performance from her. I feel like Martin Landau, who we covered, Patricia Arquette, Jeffrey Jones, Vincent D'Onofrio as Orson Welles just makes a one scene heat check as well.
what's so funny is that his voice got dubbed over by Maurice Larice, the guy who played the brain in Pinky and the Brain.
Oh,
'Cause
really?
yeah, because Tim Burton was like, I don't think Vincent D'Onofrio gave a good voice performance, so let's get the guy who is known for doing Orson Welles in cartoons.
But I think Bill Murray. We talked on Mike Starr. I love Mike Starr's performance. George Steele as Tor Johnson. Like all these fun little just performances. It's just letting these actors get a hold of these characters and just kind of make them their own. And again, I think the tone of not punching down on these kind of people, which I think is very easy to do, and I could see in another director's hands that this movie doing that
Yeah.
really works and keeps the tone of this movie afloat there. But I would have to go with Martin Landau. Like it's such like a watershed performance, and it's really the tragic life of a movie star and what that looks like at the end of his life when he hasn't been relevant for 20 years.
Exactly. I mean, I definitely think it's him. I mean, the fact that he's also like the scene we are talking about earlier, well, it's comedic where he's just like ranting about how like, I could have been Frankenstein and I turned it down. Boris Karloff, fuck him. Everyone's like, all right, let's just move on. Come on, Boris, let's get on. And it's a broken performance of a guy who like couldn't get back the fame he had.
And then once he comes out of rehab and he's just so excited to work on another film, and Ed just films him outside of his house picking things just to
Ed knows he's gonna die.
Ed knows that he's going to die because he does not have health insurance and cannot stay in the rehab center whatsoever. And Ed even is like, "Oh, I'll give you the couple $100 I have." They're like, "That's not even close to covering what this will take."
Yeah.
Which is sad, and it's weird that this underlying sadness it's hidden cleverly throughout the upbeat tone of this picture. Like the one real element is Bela Lugosi, and I think that's why Martin Landau's performance is the best in this film.
Are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
All right, Tommy. Would Ed Wood work as a Muppet movie? I think this is a weird, interesting middle ground where maybe.
I feel like there could have been scenes where like, all the actors that Ed Wood directs are just Muppets and shit like that. You can see that right here. There's a weird Google image about to send in our chat right now of apparently someone made Ed Wood Sesame Street right there, a little fan image right there. You definitely see, obviously Bela Lugosi's played by the Count. That's no brainer.
I want to suck your blood.
Yeah, exactly. I can definitely see Cookie Monster being Tor Jones. But other than that, I mean, this movie's planted a little bit too much in fantasy, or in real life rather, to be Muppet adaptation. I feel like.
I think it's this weird. I disagree with you there. I think this movie does it only lets the real life bleed in just a little bit. I think it's because the rest of the elements are cartoonish enough that you look at the movie and go, "How do I even replace this?"
Yeah,
because it's so good.
Well, Kermit's played by Ed Wood.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
it
Ed
makes
Wood's
sense.
Kermit. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I kind of think I'd rather just. I kind of like how you say it. It's like all the actors are just Muppets, and they're only Muppets when they're on the screen. I kind of feel like that would be the best way to make it work. Otherwise, I don't really think it would work super well.
Yeah.
So review time, Tommy. Give me your score out of 5.
So this is a really fun movie. This is the first time on the podcast that I was the one who hadn't seen a Tim Burton movie, and Timmy had seen it. But I'm glad I definitely got around to it. I think this is definitely an under-seen movie in Tim Burton's catalog, and underrated, honestly. I think that all the performances are really fun, and just gives up a great tone. It just shows like the underdog misfits of Hollywood that couldn't really get a hit. I'm gonna go, I think 4.5 out of 5. So really fun movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna match your score. 4.5 out of 5. I love this movie. I love the underdog nature of it. And I love the fantastical nature of something that was probably like very bleak and depressing if you were actually on the set of Plan 9 from Outer Space. I think it's just filled with humor. I think if you love movies and the production process of movies, it's a really fun movie as well. And yet it still has this huge heart. Which is something I feel like I say of every one of Tim Burton's great works, between Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi. So 4.5 out of 5 for me. Highly recommend this movie if you haven't seen it. Celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. So, Tommy, any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
I definitely want to correct us real quick. So the guys who wrote this movie did not write The Disaster Artist.
Oh, I thought they did.
No, they did not. But they did write The People versus Larry Fint, Man on the Moon, and Agent Cody Biggs. And Dolomite is my name. So there's some movies that were written. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in for our Tim Burton episode. I think this is our 4th movie we covered of his. Technically 5th if you count Nightmare Before Christmas, but doesn't really count. Anyways, you can follow us on social media at CNETPod. That's on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, occasional thread. And also leave us a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Helps us out, helps us grow the show. And next week, we're covering Arnold Schwarzenegger going to Kindergarten Cop. It's not a tool. It's a podcast.
I have never seen Kindergarten Cop. I'm very excited. Thank you all so much for listening today. We will see you next week.